So last time we explained that the status of the Bnei Israel Jews from India basically accepted to be Jewish, but the major question is whether one can marry into them because they did some kind of marriage, which is maybe acceptable, but they didn't do divorce, and so perhaps that creates a problem of mamzerut, of illegitimate children who can't marry into Am Yisrael. So what's their status? And this was discussed thoroughly by the Rabbanut. There's a psak din, fundamental psak din, ruling with regards to this. So the Gemara says that a Kuti cannot marry into Am Yisrael. Now, a Kuti is basically what was the Samaritans, which later became the Karaim, the Karaites, people who rejected the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law. And the Hachamim say you're not allowed to marry into them. And a number of reasons in the Gemara are given for this, but two of the key reasons are, firstly, that they did marriage, but they didn't do divorce. And so there is the chashash, there is the concern of mamzerut. And the second reason is because it was mixed into them, it got, during the generations, it got mixed into them people who are invalid, servants and other kinds of people who got mixed into them. And therefore, that makes everyone tainted with this, and therefore the Hachamim said you can't marry into them. And the major question discussed, so if we take that on, if that's the reason, then seemingly one would need to say that the Bnei Israel Jews are also forbidden to marry into Am Yisrael because there's a chashash of mamzerut, just like the Gemara says that Samaritans you can't marry because they did marriage but they didn't do divorce. We have a very similar scenario here. The question which the poskim deal with is there's many aspects to this, but in short, is this a gezerah? Meaning, one way of understanding this is that this is a concern the Hachamim have, and whenever you have a situation where Hachamim have the same concern, then you have to have the same ruling. And if that's the case, then that would be the Bnei Israel, you're going to have to forbid them. But the other way to understand this is that really the main reason the Hachamim didn't want us marrying into them is to try to create prevention and try to create a barrier between intermarriage with them because of their views, because of their rejection of the oral Torah, despite the fact they were initially Jews, but they rejected the oral Torah. And the Hachamim they made a gezerah, they made a fixed decree that we don't want you to mix with them. And the Gemara gives some extra reasons why this is the case. But the main reason is the gezerah. It's a enactment by the Hachamim that this group of people we don't want mixing with. And if that's the case, then one could argue that it's a gezerah specifically on them, on these kinds of people who reject the Torah, even though the Gemara said some other reasons of the fact that they do marriage but they don't get divorced. But that's a specific gezerah, a specific enactment for this specific group of people who reject the Torah Sheba'al Peh, whether it's the Kutim, the Samaritans, the Karaites. Yes, those kinds of people the Hachamim made the gezerah upon, but not upon others. And this was the view of many of the poskim. But then there's the issue. Fine, even if you want to say that, but why don't we? Fine, we accept that. Let's say it's only a gezerah on a specific group of people, and therefore you can't extend that to the Bnei Israel of today. But still, there is a question. What about the fact that you have a situation where people are getting married and not getting divorced, and that creates perhaps mamzerut within, and they all get mixed in with each other, and everyone becomes a mamzer. So, on that, the poskim wrote that there is a concept in the Gemara, which we're going to discuss next time, mishpaha shenitma'a nitme'a. That's with an ayin. A family or a person who's got mixed into Am Yisrael, then we consider them kasher. Once they've been mixed in, we can take them on to be kasher. And the idea being is even if they did do kiddushin and they didn't do divorce, which may have created mamzerim, but then automatically once they're mixed in, those potential mamzerim, then they're mixed in and they become kasher. And we'll explain the rationale for this idea next time. But based on that, on these points, the opinion of the majority of the poskim was to allow the Bnei Israel to be Jewish, but also to marry into Am Yisrael. This was the view of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, of Herzog, the former chief rabbi of Nisim, and even Shmuel Rozovsky, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Ponevezh, but also was a Dayan in the Bedin HaGadol, also wrote to allow them. There were others who disagreed. The Tzitz Eliezer, Reza Waldenberg, said no, they can't. They can't marry in because of the concern of Mamzerut. He argued with these points, and he said that you can't marry in. But this is the psak of the Rabbanut of Israel. The Bnei Israel, Jews are Jewish and are allowed to marry in. Some of the poskim will disagree, but that is the halacha accepted in Israel and their status today to marry within Am Israel.